Ladies and Savages, welcome to another episode of Savages Unscripted. I'm Hector, and I'm joined here by my co-host. What's your name again?
Name's Al.
Oh, that's that. There it is. Dude, how you doing, man?
Short and to the point.
We haven't talked in a while.
I know. It's just been busy with the family, man. It's always got to come in first.
You had mentioned, I believe in the last episode, you were having family over from Peru. How's that going?
Yeah, I've had my aunt and my two cousins and my grandma over for the last 3 weeks already. And it's been fun. Work gets in the way. But for the most part, when I get to spend time with them, it's just really great.
And you got a dog, if I'm correct. You want to tell the audience about that?
Yeah, so I recently bought a 2-month puppy, Shiba Inu, Japanese breed. Her name's Nipsey.
Nipsey.
And she could be quite the eater / troublemaker. Wakes me up at freaking 3 a.m. at times, but hey, it's like a preview to having a kid.
Yeah, you're getting your practice right now. But
yeah.
I think it's funny how when we first decided to make the podcast, you and me talked a lot. I think we're like on Xbox, we were just talking. We had our group chat and we were talking on Messenger. We were just continuously talking, and that's why we had the idea for this podcast. But at the same time, I haven't heard from you in a while. You haven't heard from me in a while. I think that's life. We're adults now.
Especially with all the stuff we want to get into and all the projects we've been giving sneak peeks to each other about, it definitely gets a lot of time out of our way. And obviously other external factors. But it's fun to have this podcast, especially with you. We've had a lot of long sessions on Xbox Live. Besides talking about how we should have a podcast because we talked so much. But we could get in seriously deep conversations at times within any topic.
Yeah, and here we are. And let's get right into this. I actually wanted to share something because I told you I was going back to work today, but I don't think I told you what it was and why I had to go back.
No.
But so as you know, I had the summer off. I work with kids, so when they got off school, I didn't have work as well. So the past month and a half, I've just been really just chilling, resting, doing what I want to do. And and right before the break, my boss asked me, "Hey, do you want to stay at this school? You can relocate if you want." And I told her I want to stay here. I like it here. And I'd only been there for a little bit. And I just got an email just a few days ago saying that a few other schools in the district actually liked the way I work. I guess they had people like observing us and stuff. And they reached out to me and they requested me to be on their team. So I was invited to this, they call it a bidding event. I was going to have to go to the main building or whatever. I was going to have to meet these people that were interested in me and basically decide, am I going to stay where I am or am I going to go somewhere else? So it's pretty cool. I saw it like the NBA offseason. I was like a free agent, Yeah. I was like, all right.
No tampering. Yeah. No tampering.
Money's not an option here. I'm going to get paid the same no matter what. But it's more so the idea of where do I fit in? Maybe this school seems better. Maybe these coworkers complement the way I work. Or maybe like I see like a better area for growth, So today I went to that. That was around 5 in the evening. And I got there. And okay, so before we start, actually I called today because I told the lady like, "Hey, I already said I wanted to stay at the same school. Do I have to go to this?" And she was like, "Yeah." And the event ends at 5:30. And I told her like, it says here it starts at 5:30. And she was like, no, that's wrong. I was like, all right, I'll go over right now. It was like 2:00. And then I'm that person where I have to make sure. I have to double check. I don't trust people. Maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes it's a bad thing.
Flake, man.
So I called again and another lady answered. And I told her like, "Hey, this lady said it ends at 5:30, and she was like, oh, I don't know who told you that, but she's wrong. So I was like, oh I guess I'll trust you. You know, the email says it and you say it too. So I got there around 5:30, and as soon as I got there, my boss was there from the school I currently work at. And she saw me at this event. And she knows what the event is, you know. She knows I'll be talking and meeting other site leads and other, you know, school people, whatever. And she sees me and she was like, wow, Hector, really? You worked for me for a couple months and you're leaving already? And I told her, like, I'm just checking the horizon. I'm just looking around. But
I'm being forced here. I didn't want to come.
Yeah, so it felt like the NBA off season, you know. So I talked to her for a little bit. We talked about what the school year was going to be like and her ideas. And I promise you, I was there for 2 minutes and I told her, all right, you got me. I'm signing. Where do I sign? So I got that extension, you know. So,
nice.
Yeah, so it's pretty. So it was a paid event. Like, we're being paid to stay there, and she told me, like, yeah, just sign in and leave. I got you. You're getting paid. I was like, yeah, this is why I stayed.
Hey, no, that's kind of tempering, though, bro. Come on, she's gonna pay you for just signing. She'll be like, nah, I'll pay you after.
Yeah, but for real though, like I like the idea of, you know, some other people noticing the way I work. I think we should always work hard regardless. But it feels nice, you know, like other people telling you, like, hey, you're working your ass off, you know. But at the same time, like, I really liked my job and the people there. And like I told you, I barely got hired. I was only there for a little bit. So I saw it as a, you know, let me grow with these people a little more, you know. Let me see how this is, you know.
Yeah, especially with how much fun you've been having and possibly more stories you're going to tell down the line. It's a really interesting spot you're in.
Oh, man. Yeah. Too much fun. I've told you all my wacko stories at that job. I'll have to share those in a different episode. But man, that working with kids is interesting. That's all I'm going to say. It's just interesting. Like, unless you don't like kids and you're not patient, like, if you're an impatient person, of course you're not going to like it. But other than that, like, it's just, you're always going to come home with these different stories, you know? And like, I've told you all these crazy ass stories, and you and Angel are always telling me, like, this happened at your school, you know? This happened to you. But
yeah, especially with all the patience you've been having with all these kids, especially that one
that girl,
what do you call it? I wouldn't say stubborn, but kind of like backstabbing little girl.
Literal backstabbing. I had a little girl stab somebody with the spork, not a fork, with the spork. That was interesting. I wasn't there for that, but I heard she did it, and yeah, that girl's a little. She
stabbed you with the Toy Story character.
She's something else. Like, I could do like 3 episodes on just her, but I'll do that. I'll do that another day. But shifting gears here, there was some big news 2-3 weeks ago. I think you've heard about. So Disney's been doing their live action movies, and they announced Mulan and The Little Mermaid. And I know Mulan was announced a while ago, but I guess they just put out a trailer. I didn't see all of it. And they showed photos. They showed the photos or the casting for The Little Mermaid. And for those that don't know, they cast, her name is Halle Bailey, not to confuse with Halle Berry. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm confused right now.
Yep.
Confused myself. But yeah, so they cast this girl. She came out in Austin and Ally, I'm assuming. And people are losing their minds. It's crazy. You've heard of this, right?
I've heard somewhat of it. Not such a huge Disney fan in general, but I just find it funny how people are reacting to just the overall cast and maybe what could happen down the line. I wonder if there'll ever be like an actives group for this shit. Oh my god, I could just see a bunch of stuff popping left and right, but it seems like it's an interesting situation, to say the least.
Oh, it's very interesting. So Halle Bailey, and people are tripping it, and people are losing their minds because I guess a black Little Mermaid is the worst thing people have ever heard of, which is just really weird. For those that don't know, so when people think of the Little Mermaid, they think of the when did the animated movie come out? Was it late 90s, early 2000s? Probably late 90s, maybe.
Late 90s for sure.
Yeah, so she's a redhead. She's this ginger Little Mermaid. But what not many people know is that isn't the original Little Mermaid. The Disney version is a retelling. But now there's this other retelling, and people are losing their minds because, she's not what we had in mind. She's not what we had on the animated version. And, man, the internet is just toxic.
I just Googled it real quick. I just Googled her name and Little Mermaid, and the first article that came out was Halle Bailey being Black Mermaid is racist. That just doesn't make any fucking sense. But it's interesting how much outrage could happen over just a simple Disney movie, which its main function is supposed to entertain people and bring back the nostalgia. But then again, people at times like their movies to be original, but not the same, like you mentioned, not the same writer director will be there. So, and especially with all the social things that are happening with trying to promote more, I would say, equality in a way. That's why Disney's kind of doing that, and at times they're shown to just go with the trends at times, and which leads to them picking a Black Little Mermaid.
And what's funny about this is no one's even seen her acting as a Little Mermaid, so it's not a matter of, she's not a good enough actress, because I remember when they released the trailer for Aladdin, people were judging Will Smith, but not because, now we have a black genie. People they weren't a fan of the CGI, if I'm correct, and his acting. For me, I'm not the biggest Will Smith fan. But you know why these people are mad. It's pretty obvious. They want that exact image of what they had in the late 90s, with the animated one. But yeah, she's already cast. Disney already knows what they're doing. The lady that voiced the Little Mermaid in the animated version, if I'm correct, not too long after that big outrage, she went public and she said, hey, she's perfect for the Little Mermaid, So there's this person that played the Little Mermaid, the one that we all grew up to love, people that did watch it, and this person that voiced her is basically saying, "Hey, like I approve, y'all racist bastards, I approve,
Did the Spanish dub version voice actor also approve that?
Yeah.
She's gonna win a lot of people from that too.
Exactly. And then on Mulan, they showed a trailer, and I haven't seen all of it, but the one thing people noticed in the trailer was that what was the name of the little dragon?
I don't remember.
I'm looking up.
Honestly, don't.
I feel so, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, go on.
I watched. I watched Mulan, but I wasn't the biggest fan. It was a good movie. I just wasn't the biggest fan. But Eddie Murphy plays the little dragon. Yeah, that's the name. Mushu. So Eddie Murphy played Mushu in the animated version. And the one thing people noticed was that Mushu isn't in the trailer for the live action. And people are losing their shit over that too.
Damn.
Oh, it's not like the animated version. Yada, yada. I hate society. But, man.
But
just so much toxicity on the internet.
It's just that all these new CGI movies, not CGI, the IRL movies, bringing back the nostalgic old movies, it's just going to bring controversy because at the end of the day, from the time the movie was released to now, things are going to change. You know, it's not going to be the same, especially when it comes to movies like this, because there's a lot of social forces, I would say, that influence the creators to make these certain decisions. Because at the end of the day, they want to be able to, I don't know, catch the most fish when they throw the net out. They don't, and it's not going to work the same like it did in the past. Exactly. And I just feel like the really passionate ones that saw the movie originally, you know, are the ones that are being really outspoken. But I honestly don't know. I don't have research to back this up, but I feel like the general audience wouldn't mind that much. It just becomes more clicks for websites or a trendy thing that a lot of businesses or news could promote, which could lead to more attention to it, but not really be such a big problem, I feel, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and back on the Mushu thing, it's just funny how there's just so much ignorance. See, I'm the person that when these movies come out and people are saying, oh, this isn't exactly like it was, I like to do my research on it. And I was reading that the Mulan live action isn't supposed to be a retelling of the animated one. Mulan's actually a real life legend from ancient China. So right around 1400 BC, I believe around 1368. There's an actual legend and a story for Mulan, but it's just that Disney, when they did the animated version, that's all it was. It was just a telling of the story. And I know there were a lot of people that were offended by Mushu and a few other things. So when they're redoing this in live action, they're not removing it just because people were offended with Mushu in the animated version. They're removing Mushu because he doesn't have anything to do with the original legend, you know. They want to tell this story. You know, it's like I don't think I've asked you this. You guys have like some legends or something or myths in Peru, do you? Any stories?
Yeah, we have a couple, honestly. We have, from two that come off the top of my head, is that one where there's supposedly an area where aliens came in. Ooh. And then when you camp in that specific, it's a camping place. When you camp there and there's mountains, there's the mountains that are there, they come into the shape of aliens and people. And you could kind of hear some noises at night, which is interesting enough. Then there's another one where they have the Nazca lines, and same thing. Not in Peru specifically, but there's other lines, from what I know, in Chile, and they have formation lines formed into an alien or a person wearing a helmet, which is interesting enough. So yeah, there's a couple myths in there.
Yeah, so what's funny about this is, you know, we all have our myths and stories and legends, but basically what had happened was Disney took this story from ancient China and they just completely Americanized it. You know, they just really did this to make some money, you know, and now through the live action, they wanted to be more of a true telling, but people are losing their shit over that, you know.
Appeal to the bigger audience. Yeah, man. That's what they're really gotta do.
And we've talked about this before about just with social media, there isn't more complaining, but now we hear it more. And it's the same in the gaming industry. How many games have there been and people are constantly complaining? You know, even before a game comes out, when a trailer comes out, people are losing their shit. Oh, it isn't like the first one, you know? So it's just, we're in a point right now where so many people are going to complain about something. For me, I support the Little Mermaid move for sure. And Mulan, like, I'm for that.
You just gotta give it a chance, bro. What, like you were mentioning, people just like to overrule or just cross out the movie or the change to the movie just because it wasn't original, and they just don't give it a chance, and at the end of the day, it might end up being kind of good.
Exactly. And what's funny is, if you think about it, the idea of them making The Little Mermaid black, there was this meme, and it showed a picture of Jesus, because Jesus isn't supposed to be white. You know, I believe in the Bible it mentions like Jesus being of a darker skin tone. But of course, you know, things are Americanized and things are whitewashed. And that's another story of somebody that they were kind of changed over time, you know? So there is this meme saying, you know, like, people are losing their shit over this, but why is this okay? You know?
No, it's an interesting. It just feels like, you know, previously they, you know, since society changed, but previously things were accustomed to a certain way where it had to please a certain specific characteristics. But now that we want to be more transparent, from what it seems like, at least for this movie, people, or not this movie, but like for in this time, and give more rights and all this stuff, it just brings up a lot of controversy at times. But going off that, I would like to talk about one thing from what I've been experiencing recently too, is that I'd just like to, you know, have an open discussion with you about how families, especially in our Latino culture, could get to influence your relationships, either being romantic relationships or just friendships in general. I feel like it mostly goes deeper into romantic relationships, but I just found it interesting how we value more of their comments on our Hispanic views than I don't know, maybe Americans do with their families. And it could get really interesting, don't you think?
What exactly is your question?
It's just an open discussion. I want to see how much, at least for your side of your family, do you think would influence you in certain decisions, certain romantic relationships or friendships they make, you know, because at times, from what I've experienced at least, is families could get judgmental. Not from obviously everyone, but
I see what you mean.
Gossip might happen, you know, or, you know, there's certain things you gotta please in order for them to be happy, and it's just kind of dumb.
Yeah. So so one thing, I've talked about this a few times with people, because I'm actually what's it called? I'm curious about stereotypes. You know, I'm not saying like I like them and I enforce them, but I like learning about other cultures, and I want to know, you know, like, hey, is this true? Is this not? Like, I've had this discussion with Amy because she comes from a Chinese family. So I just find it interesting learning about these different cultures. And one thing people always tell me, people that aren't Mexican, you know, because I am Mexican, is, you know, you hear these stereotypes of Mexican families being like super involved in your life. You know, you see these memes of Mexican families, and you're like, it says like, oh, you're 25 at home and you still have to ask for permission to go out, you know? Mm-hmm. That is kind of true to an extent. But in terms of the families being judgmental, one thing I will give my family credit for is my parents, over time, they've kind of, I wouldn't even say Americanized, but they've changed. Like, on those stereotypes, they've kind of eased off of those. And I told you this, but when I was younger, my parents were really strict. My mom was incredibly strict. But over time, they just gave us a lot of freedom. And not just in not like a, oh, they don't care what we do kind of freedom. More like a, they're adults. They're responsible. They know better kind of freedom, you know? And something I've just noticed about my parents is like they're not judgmental. You know, me, my brother, and my sister, we can do some just like stupid stuff, and that's just not in my parents' character. And I have noticed that in some like Mexican families. I know what you mean, but not in my family. Like my parents have become very understanding and very lenient, and they really respect that freedom, you know?
I mentioned it mainly because I just the thing that always pops in my head is that my mom always brings up on relationship side of things.
Ooh.
And it's interesting because I like to obviously not just go with what she says. Obviously,
what does she does she ask you when you're going to give her grandkids?
No, not that.
Is that kind of thing?
The thing she always would mention for sure, get married, and this is a general thing, is you know, to have a smart person, to have a smart companion to be with. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But the other things that she also mentions at times would be, I don't know, like, she would always bring a standard rule of things of how a person should, how a girl deserves to be with me, or, you know, be worthy to be with me. And I just find it interesting because at the end of the day, always there are excuses like, you know, I want the best for you. I'm like, that's cool. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to go with what you provide all the time. I might have a couple of things that I like that you bring up, but at times it could just get a little critical for the person to have those specific standards, and maybe at the end of the day, you know, it's not what the person or the person's who's gonna get in a relationship really wants, but it just gets interesting on how things could roll like that, because even family members could jump into it. And I'm not saying my family's doing that, but I'm saying from what I've heard from other friends and other stuff like that, it just gotten interesting to me how I don't know how much a family could be have such a huge influence in your life. And like, you know, like you mentioned too, like, when are you gonna have grandkids, all this and that, or maybe like your parents were super strict before, and maybe for other people it could be the same for them until you move out of their house. But it's just baffles me at times how much, you know, families want to be supportive, but at the same time they want to kind of mold how your outcomes result into.
So you're referring more to relationships. I feel like you changed your question.
Well, I was also talking about...
I'm talking about
no.
stereotypes and shit.
Relationships. Well, stereotypes... Yeah, it is kind of a stereotype too, because I did want to talk about that, but also I was getting interested on, you know, just experience. That's why I wanted to have an open discussion on that.
No, but yeah, in this case, then yeah, I think any parent's gonna do that with their kids, you know, want the best for them. But you're saying like what kind of influence they have on the people you talk to? Yeah.
And not influence in the way that, oh, they're gonna determine what you want, but you know.
Oh no, comments. Man, that's just on me. Like, my parents have, you know, they've taught me and they've influenced me on some stuff, but after a while, I think I've gone to a point where they've done all they can teach me already. You know, they've done the influencing that I've needed already. I'm not saying they're obsolete and I don't need them anymore. You know, I'm not saying, all right, you're done. You did your role. But in terms of that stuff, I think I'm learning away from them. I'm learning on my own and from my friends and from being at college and doing my own shit. I get what you mean, but I thought of this before too, because I am not like my family. I've noticed there's like a lot of differences between me and my parents, and that's because for me, I don't like to restrict or limit the role models I have. You know, most people are like 1 and 2, just my parents, you know, or just my grandparents.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you want to grow, and do more and change in different ways, you need to have different role models, you know? One of my favorite role models is an author. I have role models. I used to go to this church, and two of the youth leaders, like I'm still pretty connected to them. Like they're two of my role models as well. So I've gone, like I said, my point is I've gone to a point where my parents have influenced me, but I'm still being influenced from other channels as well. You know, I don't think the way like my relationships are, I don't think a lot of that is really influenced by my parents or by my family.
Hopefully not. I don't want to. I just want to clarify because I did bring up this topic. I don't have that problem either. I just want to, get some more insight on somebody else's perspective, probably, and experience. Because the one thing that really influenced me into getting into this is there's this one friend. She has her mom. She is a single mom, and my friend, she's already in her 20s. So the mom, is already free to do whatever she wants, but she still has obviously her mom and her family in her side. And the mom, has been, I wouldn't say deprived, but she's been wanting to date for a while, and she's recently been dating, and it's funny how she's just having blast, yet her family could at times tend to get in the way of that happiness because they have their old beliefs, I would say, or just beliefs in general that, oh no, the person already has a kid, they should, well, this is what they bring up, that when she already has a kid, a grown-up kid, she shouldn't be dating anymore. She should be focusing on that person. Like you mentioned, not leave them isolated like that, but what she's not doing, but still like have such a, I wouldn't say influence, but have such strong thoughts about it. I'm like kind of confused and baffled because at the end of the day, I don't believe it should be that way.
I get that, but I think there's a certain point where you just have to tell your parents, hey, I love you, I respect you, I'm thankful for, all that you've done for me, but I'm the captain now, realistically, one thing is if, you live with your parents, of course there's rules you got to abide by, it's like having roommates. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a certain point where you're not a kid anymore, they're not controlling your life and you have to talk to them. And I've known people like this too, when their parents are just overly like strict and overbearing. And it's like, it's up to you. I don't know how your parents are, but you should have a talk with them.
It's whatever. It would honestly like you said, you have to talk to them, and it will come down to that. But it's just one little aspect, a little cusp of how society works.
Yeah,
which interests me a lot. I like to analyze it a lot.
I told you about my ex-girlfriend that her parents were like constantly on her, like they knew her schedule. And damn. I know that they didn't know about me, and I guess they knew that there was one quarter where her classes ended like at a certain time, and she came over to visit me, we're hanging out, and her mom literally called her, and her mom said, hey, you got out of class 2 minutes ago, are you on your way already? Oh my God. But this it's one thing if it's if it's like nighttime, you're trying to be cautious. But this happened every time. It was like, hey, we know your schedule. You should be on your way. Hey, you should already be here. You know what's up. And I remember that bothered her. And all I could say was like, well, if it bothers you, you should have a talk to them. And she'd always be like, oh, well, that's not how we are. I can't confront them on this. And I was like, oh, well.
We're not confrontational.
Then don't. Here's the thing. You either have two options. You confront or you don't. That's all you can do. But if you don't, nothing's going to change. That's my point.
It's actions versus words, man.
That's how it is with anything.
Mm-hmm.
But we should start wrapping up now. Another good episode. I feel like we talked about some good shit.
Yeah, and I'm like happy that we were able to get a good, strong discussion within close to 30 minutes.
Is there any last thing you wanted to mention before we cap out?
No, I'm gonna just say not really anything much. I would just say that we definitely would have liked to talk more about this, but it seems interesting how much society could just work in general, and possibly all the experiences we had, and makes us think on how much we actually learned, and we just got to sit down and think about it.
Mm-hmm. And just one thing I wanted to say was, so to those listening, at this point, we have no episodes, published and out ready for the public. So by the time this happens, this will be in our distant future. But, we're learning here. We're hoping to get this out. We just did some time traveling today. We did the intro right before we did the second episode. We jumped episodes. So we did a little bit of time traveling. That was a little fun. But we're hoping to get this ball rolling. I think that's the expression. You have some ideas for this. We've had some ideas that we're excited for this podcast. Things we've been talking about over for a while. Things we just started talking about just yesterday. So let's hope these things go through. And just like I said, if anybody has any ideas, any topic ideas they want us to talk about, anything down the line, we want to feature some guests, hit us up.
Yeah. Eventually, we'll have an email for this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, that's another.
And if you want to privately email us, you could do that.
Maybe by the next episode.
Or you could just comment. Or tell us in person if we know you, or whatever we bring up. Let us know. We definitely would love to talk about any sort of topics.
Yeah, but to all our listeners, you 3 or 4 people, have a great week.